There's a ton of noise out there. So how do you get decision makers to pay attention to your brand? Start a podcast and invite your ideal clients to be guests on your show. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to B2B Growth. I'm your host for today's episode, Logan Lyles with Sweetfish Media. I'm joined today by Mark Alpert. He is the VP of the Business Assurance Division at TÜV SÜD America. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Logan. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Mark. We've had a few of your colleagues on the show already. Really excited to hear your perspective today. We're going to be talking about this concept of Industry 4.0. Can you give us a little bit of background on yourself and what you and your team at TÜV SÜD are up to these days before we jump into today's topic?
Absolutely, be happy to. So TÜV SÜD America is a company that provides services in the testing, inspection, and certification industry. We're kind of the guys that work along with companies to ensure their products meet regulatory requirements, that their manufacturing processes comply with certain standards and codes that will allow them to market their products around the world, ensure the safety of those products, and hopefully gain market share in their chosen fields.
I love it. So one of the things you and I were talking about before we hit record today, Mark, was this concept of Industry 4.0 and what that really means for different functional roles within organizations. Can you help define that term before we speak to, what it means and what to do about it today?
Yeah, happy to do that. So Industry 4.0 is one of those, it's kind of a new term, but once you've heard of it, that you may have never heard of, but once you hear of it, you start hearing about it, hearing the term all over the place. It's actually, it's really new to American manufacturing. European manufacturing companies are a little bit more used to it. Maybe here in America, companies have heard the term of additive manufacturing or smart manufacturing or smart factory or factory of the future. Really, I think the term that's taking hold around the world is Industry 4.0, which is it's a term that's grown out of years of work that leading associations and industry experts and academics and have been working on, really to try to define what the factory of the future is as we move more towards technology, big data, and those things start influencing robotics, how those things start influencing manufacturing more and more. How do companies take advantage of that new technology to improve, to be more efficient, to be more effective, to be more agile, to do things faster, and be able to turn things around that their customers are looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the things, Mark, that you're recommending organizations do to really prepare for this shift of Industry 4.0?
Yeah, so the first part of it is that it's really just to understand what the key concepts are and really to try to understand what's going on in manufacturing or what's going on in the entire value chain around them. It's I think, as we mentioned earlier, the physical world and the digital world are converging. And that's really just being driven by big data, the use of other technologies in manufacturing, where machines used to be solely focused on the execution of one task because that's what it was programmed to do. Machines today are now connected, they're intelligent, they're autonomous, they're capable of communicating with other pieces of equipment, and that they are able to interact with each other. They're able to actually fix their own problems now. And so the manufacturing process is really no longer static. It's adaptive. It's, as I mentioned, self-correcting, and capable of responding to customers' demand in real time. And so the first step for many organizations is just to understand that change is in front of us. And really that once companies understand that and are willing to accept that, then it's time to really just understand what the concepts of Industry 4.0 are and how to build a roadmap for the fulfillment, and how to build really a common language to create alignment across the organization and start to think about what the high leverage areas are that they can really take advantage of first.
Yeah. So what are some of the first steps you recommend once there's this common language about where we're going, how we're implementing the use of new technology across the organization to move in this new direction, the changes, like you said, that are happening right in front of organizations to take the next steps down this journey, Mark?
Yeah, exactly. So we see it every week. We see companies sort of wrestling with this process, and we suggest we've come up with an acronym. We suggest a LEAD framework, LEAD framework, where the L stands for learn. And as I was just commenting, really that first step about understanding the concepts of Industry 4.0 and building a common language that you can use across your organization at all levels of the organization, the different functional areas within the organization, and particularly across manufacturing, so that everybody starts to build that vocabulary and is talking about the same items. Secondly, the E is evaluate. So understanding where the company, the current state of the company, where the existing facility kind of sits in terms of readiness to adopt Industry 4.0. And is there much use? Are they have digitalization initiatives? Is there much use of big data? Is there equipment that they're now or devices that they're now connecting to the cloud and collecting data upon? And are they in a position to be able to use, evaluate, analyze, and use that kind of data? So really, just in general, understanding the state of the current facility and where they are in readiness to get going. Then A is architect. It's really building a transformation strategy, and how do we get from where we are now in the evaluate section to where we aspire to be, and how do we build that roadmap that's going to move us from the current state, the as-is state, to the should-be state. And lastly is then to deliver and sustain those kind of transformation initiatives, and how can the company continue to build on the foundation to continue to reap greater and greater benefits of this type of exercise.
It's story time again, and we're talking about search engine marketing. Today, I'm going to tell you about a challenge within Pelican Case's B2B division. Pelican needed a partner with deep B2B expertise that could get them a massive bump in leads from their pay-per-click campaigns without increasing spend. After vetting a handful of agencies, they decided to go with Directive Consulting, a B2B search marketing agency located in Southern California. Directive took on this challenge by refining their targeting and building custom landing pages for their advertising efforts. Once implemented, they saw a 208% increase in conversion rate. Needless to say, Pelican Cases met their initiative. And I have a hunch that Directive can get these kind of results for you too. So head over to directiveconsulting.com and request a totally free custom proposal. That's directiveconsulting.com. All right, let's get back to this interview.
Yeah, I love it, Mark. I love that. I love any good framework or acronym. Maybe it's just out of habit, but my brain tends to gravitate to those. So I love the framework that you're sharing with folks to think through this as they prepare for the next stage in the journey. And any big shift in an organization or an industry, if you're going to survive, you have to have good communication cross-functionally. So obviously, a lot of what you're talking about is going to live in manufacturing or in operations. What are some of the things that you suggest for those leaders in manufacturing and operations do to work with their marketing counterparts to share the shift in the company's approach and how that impacts customers? Because going through the change is one thing, but then communicating that with your customer base, with the market at large, is another thing as well. So what are some of your recommendations for that cross-functional partnership as you I don't know if pivot's the right word, but as you chart the new course for your organization with all of these things in mind?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. So first off, from a marketing perspective, really to understand that this is an opportunity for a company, and maybe not just at marketing. This as I'm thinking about this, it probably applies to the entire C-suite. But that this is an opportunity for your company or for any company around the world to really be disruptive to their industry, to their market, in their existing business models, and be able to gain a real competitive advantage by being more efficient and more flexible and produce products at a greater speed and in lower volumes based on whatever customer demands might be. And so for marketers, I would think that that's a little nugget of gold that they're able to translate into collateral or translate into things that would attract new customers and or even older customers that you might have gone somewhere else, and let's get them back.
Yeah, restart the conversation there.
Yeah, and I think a key part of that as this kind of journey requires is about asking in communication, is asking a lot of the right questions. And that tends to be a big part of this challenge is this transformation and this building this roadmap, is being able to ask the right questions so that you can move through those steps and really move from awareness to implementation. Last year, McKinsey did a survey. I think it was about 200 manufacturing companies, and it was something like 75% of those who responded recognized that Industry 4.0 would improve the business, is something that their customers are beginning to expect. But those same companies, it was a small percentage. It was like 12% or 13% of those companies. Only 13% of those companies had really embarked on some kind of a Industry 4.0 initiative. And so there seems to be some kind of a hiccup in the system there about moving from that evaluation or understanding where the company currently stands to developing that real roadmap about how to go forward. So certainly if a company can take advantage of that, develop that roadmap, figure out what the priorities are for them, move forward with initiatives to address those high leverage areas, to me would be, from a marketing perspective, also just a wonderful opportunity to get out there and tell your story and see how you can generate some new or as I was saying, some existing interest from customers.
Mm-hmm. That makes total sense. Would your recommendation be to really continue to tell that story, weave it in with, what we've always done well, that you're enhancing that as opposed to making an entire shift in what we do or how we do it, those sorts of things that, we're layering up, we're changing as, the technology is changing, for the better of the customers that we serve?
Yeah, exactly right. So it's continuing that story that we are on the edge. We're on the leading edge. We're one of those companies that we listen. This is what you've told us. We're on the edge. We're using new technologies. We're becoming faster, more efficient, more effective, more accurate, whatever the right words are, by taking advantage of the benefits that Industry 4.0 can offer. And part of that is just really, again, understanding from a business perspective what are the essential objectives for a business. What is the vision? What is the mission? Where is it that they want to move? Where are they trying to take the company up for the future? And where can they have an immediate effect on that vision? And I guess at the same time on the bottom line. And for organizations to be very specific, if there's a company who's looking to achieve net zero emissions in production or in reductions in their time to market, then those are the stories that they want to be able to tell, and those are the areas around Industry 4.0 that they develop the roadmap for in order to realize those kinds of goals.
Yeah, I think anytime you can get very specific about the story that you're telling in what you're doing, the changes that you're making, in where you're trying to go, and tell that story, but very specifically, right? Not just in general marketing terms, but in we're making this move and it to that long-term vision that the company has and where we want to go and the city on the hill that we're trying to build. So I think that is great advice to leave with our listeners today, Mark. If anybody listening to this, Mark, would like to stay connected with you, ask follow-up questions, maybe this is the first time they've heard the term Industry 4.0, or they have questions about, going through this process within their organization and would like to ping you with some questions, what's the best way for them to reach out or learn more about what you and your team are up to?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So they can reach out to me with either via email, and my email address is mark.alpert@tuvsud.com, or certainly to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
And I'm happy to reach back out and have an Industry 4.0 conversation.
I love it. Mark, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. This has been great.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Logan.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.